All right. So we're in here. It's been a while. This is Trump and the GE. Tennessee State House expels two Democrats over gun protests, and Tennessee's been in the news, making a lot of noise. Uh, John Moran's been making a lot of noise for the basketball team, the Memphis Grizzlies, and now you have a few state legislators who have actually removed him out of the news. You have Justin Pearson, Justin Jones, and Gloria Johnson, who were expelled from the state Justin Jones and Justin Pearson were expelled from the state legislature last week. Gloria Johnson was almost expelled. From what I understand, she came within one vote of getting expelled and has made major news. All eyes are on Tennessee. I think all eyes are going to be on Tennessee for a while now, in reaction to a school shooting over a week ago. Six people were killed in Tennessee. The two Justins and Gloria Johnson stormed the state house with a bunch of protesters, bullhorn in hand, and caused a major disruption at one of the sessions. They were asked to calm down. They wouldn't, and then it ultimately led to a hearing that led to, again, Justin Johnson, Justin Pearson being expelled from the state house. From what I understand, it only happened a couple of times in history. I think one person was expelled because of sexually harassing over 20 women. Another one was expelled because of bribery. I think another person was expelled a long, long time ago because he voted against the 14th Amendment. It has drawn a reaction from Republicans. President Joe Biden has spoken on it. Kamala Harris made an impassioned speech about it. Former President Barack Obama made comments about the expulsion. The corporate media has gone crazy. It's racism, of course. It's racist because only two black guys were expelled, while the white lady, Gloria Johnson, was not expelled. It has something to do with slavery, of course, like everything, according to the corporate media and certain journalists. It has something to do with slavery. It has something to do with Jim Crow. It's just like slavery. It's just like Reconstruction and something. Everything has something to do with slavery, according to the corporate media and certain black folks in the corporate media. But I'm going to let Justin Pearson explain his take on what happened and why he was expelled. Okay, here goes.
Gloria Johnson and her attorneys, who they too are seeking to expel right before I speak and before they work to expel me, which I expect to happen too. We are losing our democracy. This is not normal. This is not okay. If you look at what it takes to expel a member, or what it should take, most of the times that a member in the Tennessee State Legislature have gotten expelled, in the last two times in particular, one, the guy committed sexual assault against 22 people. The other committed bribery. We broke a house rule because we're fighting for kids who are dying from gun violence and people in our communities who want to see an end to the proliferation of weaponry in our communities, and that leads to our expulsion. This is not democracy. This is not what it is supposed to look like, and everybody needs to be very afraid and very worried that there are people in positions of power who are using and wielding that power to expel people who are duly elected to their seats. We came here to fight for our constituents. We came here to lift up the issues of people who are suffering. 6 people died in Nashville at the Covenant School. 3 were 9 years old. But instead of focusing on that, Representative Jones, Representative Johnson, and myself are being expelled from the State House because we said we cannot do business as usual. No one should be wanting to operate as though this is not happening, as though we are not living in a gun violence epidemic in the state of Tennessee. And the solutions that are being offered is actually to reduce the First Amendment rights of people who speak up on behalf of their constituencies, who speak up on behalf of people who are tired of the guns, who are tired of seeing legislation being passed that lowers the age for you to carry, tired of seeing legislation being passed that says you don't need a permit, tired of legislation being passed that says if we give teachers guns, that's somehow going to fix the problem. People are tired of these non-real solutions to a real problem.
Okay, so he made a very impassioned speech, a lot of good points. Something needs to be done about the gun violence in Tennessee. He called it a gun violence epidemic. He said that people should be concerned that their voices are being silent. This is a real issue in Tennessee as well as other states as well. It comes down to what should we do about it, and he's saying that democracy is not being rendered in Tennessee by silencing his voice and the voice of Justin Jones and Gloria Johnson, and there need to be real solutions. Here's the counterpoint from the Republicans as far as why they were expelled.
Representative from Tennessee, Jeremy Faison. He is the Tennessee Republican Caucus Chair, joining us now. And good evening. Thanks for joining us. Can you just kind of explain to us why you believe these two members have just been expelled?
Thank you. That's a great question. First of all, I'd like to say it's a terribly sad time. This is a very grave situation that someone would be expelled. Before that, we've had some serious tragedies in Tennessee, and the 6 innocent lives that were lost last week are absolutely devastating. So I want to make sure that we mention that's one of the biggest things going on right now in Tennessee. You asked me specifically about why do I think they would be expelled, and I think that's a great question America deserves to know. We have several hundred years, over 200 years of an incredible state house, history that's rich. Tennessee is one of the most important states in all of America. We have had literally thousands of state reps since 1796 who have worked, and then after 1859 have worked in this very chamber that you're seeing me in today. They have all understood that there are rules and procedures to ensure that every voice is heard. There's almost 7 million Tennesseans. And we have come up with these ideas that the best way for everybody to be heard is to make sure that we follow the rules of decorum. These members have come in this entire, go ahead.
Let me just, Representative, there interrupt to say, I understand decorum. Van was just making the point there. Of course, not everyone could bring a bullhorn in every time they disagreed. Otherwise, it would be total chaos. But why take this step? Why was there no measure you could have taken before expulsion? Why take the most extreme step so quickly?
So that's an excellent question. More than just what America has seen that took place last Thursday, there's a history all year long of disrupting committees and the House floor, getting off of the germane topic. When I say germane, that means what we're dealing with at that moment, just to make political grandstand. We've called them out. The chairman of committees, the Speaker of the House have been calling them out time and time again for grabbing the mic, sucking the air out of the room, making sure no other voice is heard. And finally, when they come and act so foolish on the House floor, this is a sacred place that belongs to everybody, and literally start looking up into the gallery with a bullhorn, getting the protesters worked up into a frenzy, that is incumbent on us to say, you've gone a step too far, and we're going to take steps to make sure that if you ever do come back, if you get reelected, that it's a serious thing to Tennesseans that you come and disrupt the people's house. So I think it was very important for us to do that.
The speaker here likened what they did to what happened on January 6th in Washington, D.C. Do you agree with that comparison?
I believe them coming in and taking over the House. They called it occupying the well. The well is where we stand up front to pass our bills. That is incredibly disruptive and embarrassing to the legislature, the institution that we have here. And I didn't see anybody in Congress try to take over. Now, I saw some really big idiots that I hope are punished to the full extent of the law come and break into the Capitol and act foolish on January 6th. But I didn't see a congressman act this way. What we saw here in Tennessee is 3 elected state representatives who know the rules, who understand that this place belongs to everybody. They come in and rush up here and take over the House floor and refuse, even when our sergeant at arms, he's a gentle soul. Several of them are just great men. Come in and gently encourage them, guys, not right now. Let's don't do this. They sent them away. It was It's an embarrassment to everybody to see someone come and behave like that. And good, gentle souls who are sergeant arms, have been here for years, come in there and try to encourage you. Hey, you're making a mistake. And they didn't do it. And I'd like to add to y'all, they've not backed down from that either. You know, I told them earlier today, I feel like if they would have said, you know what, we messed up. I mean, what American, what human won't bring forgiveness and redemption, but they doubled down and went so far as to stand in the well today and said, I'd do it again. That was their mentality. That shows me when there's a pattern of behavior like that, if you refuse to stop it yourself, then we have to.
So you hear the Republican legislators say these guys were warned that there's been a pattern of disruptive behavior at the state house over time. They put up with it, but they're not going to put up with it anymore. They were warned to knock it off. They wouldn't. They were disruptive to the legislature. Basically stormed the Capitol building with a bunch of protesters and took over. And then the Republicans are comparing it to to January 6th event where people stormed the Capitol building. And so where the Democrats called it insurrection, the Republicans in Tennessee are saying, what's the difference? Why are people speaking in forked tongue? They were warned, they didn't stop, and they didn't show remorse, and they claimed that they would do it again. So there's two sides to every story. The Republicans saying they were justified in expelling these people, and if they come back, then they'll know that what their actions were very serious, and that could happen again if they keep acting up. What the potential repercussions are. Okay, so those are the facts. Now, that gets down to the question is, what can be done about what Justin Pearson calls a gun epidemic in Tennessee? I mean, the legal answer is the proliferation of guns causing a public nuisance? That's the legal claim it seems to be making. That's called a public nuisance, and guns need to be moved out of the street because it's called a public nuisance. Can you get a public nuisance claim against gun manufacturers? That's the question. They tried to do this in the past and they couldn't do it. It's a big legal fight with the gun manufacturers within NRA about removing guns out of off the street. I was making this argument when I was in college back in the late 80s. My friends and I were complaining about, why not just take the guns off the street? There were a bunch of mostly black women in South Central LA who were saying that their sons would be getting killed by these high-powered weapons and these semi-automatic weapons. That these gangs in LA in the 70s were fighting with sticks and stones and bats and chains and beating each other up. By the 80s, they were fighting with high-powered weapons and people were dying. And we couldn't figure out why these high-powered weapons on the street. So I was making the exact same argument that Representative Pearson and Johnson and Jones were making now. I was making it back in the 80s. This was before white people were getting shot. Back in the 80s, it's mostly African Americans and nobody cared. And the public would go, guns don't kill people. People kill people. Now that white people getting shot, equally, it's not so funny anymore, and it's not so cute anymore with these mass shootings. You wouldn't wish that on anybody, but I was making the exact same argument back in the 80s. The big legal battle with the gun manufacturers, they won. That you can't get a public nuisance claim against gun manufacturers, and the argument is that a gun manufacturers cannot determine how someone uses or misuses their products after they're manufactured. You can get a product liability claim against a gun manufacturer if the gun doesn't work properly. We had the same argument on Trump and the GE a year ago with the opiate crisis, that the state attorneys general were trying to get a public nuisance claim against opiate manufacturers and taking opiates off the street. They're saying there was a proliferation of opiates were causing a so-called opiate crisis, and the judge slapped it down. The judges slapped it down, so you can't get a public nuisance claim against opiate manufacturers. Opiate manufacturer cannot determine how someone uses or misuses its products after it's manufactured. These opiates are prescribed by doctors. It's like guns, you have to get a license for a gun. I think Tennessee is relaxing the gun laws, where I think they're lowering the age to carry from 21 to 18, so on and so forth, which I don't think is a good idea, but, that's just me. It seems to be a reaction to all this rhetoric about the proliferation of guns. They've doubled down and they're fighting back. So it's hard to get a public nuisance claim against gun manufacturers. You can probably get a product liability claim, just like the opiate crisis. You can't get a public nuisance claim against opiate manufacturers. How someone uses or misuses one's product after they manufacture it, you can't hold the manufacturer liable for that. So if you get a public nuisance claim against the gun manufacturers and start taking guns off the street, it opens up a whole Pandora's box where you can start getting public nuisance claims against opium manufacturers and manufacturers of various products. You can get a product liability claim against them. So that's the hurdle that Representative Johnson, Pearson, and Jones are going up against. That's a legal argument. The other thing is why are all the gun incidents happening in Tennessee and across the country? I mean, I predicted the social unrest would occur. In my book, Shock Exchange, How Inner City Kids from Brooklyn predicted the Great Recession and paying ahead. I wrote the book about 10 years ago. People thought I was crazy. The general thought was that the economy is strong. And I was saying, no, it's not strong. It could be the next recession could be worse than the last. It's going to lead to more social unrest, printing all this money and giving it to, politicians, donors, or somebody who wants to sleep with them when they leave office. It's not good for the economy. It's not going to spur the economy long term. And now you're seeing the effects. You have costs going up and wages going down for the populace. Young people really don't have a whole lot of opportunity. If you go to college and you get out of college with you graduate, you get out with a couple $100,000 in debt and no job prospects. So why wouldn't people want to go off? So you have to have some leadership on the other side as well. You just can't blame the gun manufacturers. You have to show some leadership with the politicians and business, so-called business leaders. Why? What's driving this social unrest? What's driving all the gun incidents and the drug overdose deaths? Those types of things. So I think that's the next conversation to have. I think Tennessee has triggered this conversation. It's made a national issue. Now it comes down to legally, can you get a public nuisance claim against gun manufacturers to take guns off the street? If you take one gun off the street, it's going to lead to Democrats trying to take all guns off the street, which has always been a fear of the NRA and people who and proponents of gun rights laws. Particularly people in New York don't understand that, down south, I grew up in Virginia, in rural Virginia, your house is right here. The next house could be 100 yards away. How could you protect yourself without a gun? That's the other thing. So it comes down to, legally, can you get a public nuisance claim? That's the question. What are the so-called leaders doing to address the issues that the populace is going through? This triggering, I think, maybe triggering a lot of these gun incidents, drug overdose deaths, so on and so forth. But Tennessee is right in the middle of it. And they've sparked a conversation that comes down to, can people come up with real solutions to some of the problems that's going on in Tennessee and other places? But, kudos to, Representative Johnson, Pearson, Jones, and also to the Republicans for, both sides have points that they're making. Both sides have made their points pretty clearly. And then it comes down to, can everybody come to some type of landing together? I somehow, for some reason, I doubt it. But that's Trump and the G. We'll follow up on these issues and more over the next couple of weeks. But keep listening. We'll keep talking. But this is really what it comes down to. A public nuisance claim versus finding a happy medium between what gun rights advocates want, what the law allows, and what the Democrats are asking for, just to end to the violence. Again, it's Trump and the G. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in a couple of days. Thank you.